Hello again everyone and welcome back to Everyday Intelligence, the channel where we learn and use military and intelligence instruments to understand the world around us. Today we are going to talk about Russian and Taliban rapprochement that has been going on for several months and is now about to come into being. The origins of these relations could be traced to October 21, 2021. Putin said during a plenary session of the Valdai Discussion Club that Russia is approaching a decision to remove the Taliban, at that moment banned in Russia, from the list of terrorist organizations, but the UN Security Council must do this first. He noted that now everything depends on whether the situation in Afghanistan will develop in a positive way. He noted that Russia cooperates with representatives of the Taliban, invites them to Moscow and is in contact with them in Afghanistan itself. Moreover, he added that the Taliban must build relations with all ethnic groups, political and public organizations within Afghanistan. The day before, a meeting on Afghanistan called Moscow Format was held in the Russian capital. In a joint statement following the talks, the participants noted, in particular, the need to interact with the new Afghan authorities regardless of the status of the Taliban in the international arena. On the morning of May 27, 2024, Zamir Kabulov, the director of the Second Asian Department of the Russian Foreign Ministry, stated to TASS that the Russian Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of Justice reported to Russian President Vladimir Putin that the Taliban movement, banned in Russia, could be excluded from the list of terrorist organizations. Kabulov stated that the exclusion of the Taliban from the list of banned countries before its recognition is mandatory. In fact, without this it would be premature to talk about recognition. Therefore, this issue continued to be worked out at that stage. According to him, recognition of the Taliban government by the Russian Federation has become much closer than when they came to power in Afghanistan in 2021. But there are still some issues that need to be overcome, after which the Russian leadership will make a decision, Kabulov noted. The same-day lawyer Dmitry Agranovsky clarified in a comment to TASS that the exclusion of the Taliban from the list of terrorist organizations is only possible by a decision of the Supreme Court. In fact, 1. The Russian Supreme Court recognized the Taliban movement as a terrorist organization in 2003. In its decision, the court noted that the Taliban was formed in Afghanistan in 1994 as an extremist Islamic movement and maintains ties with illegal armed groups operating in Chechnya, and uses terrorist methods in its activities. 2. In November 2019, a conference was held in Moscow, attended by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and representatives of the Taliban. 2 years earlier, on March 3, 2020, Lavrov said that Russia would contact the Taliban only if Russian citizens were harmed or to persuade the Taliban to begin negotiations on a peaceful settlement in Afghanistan. After 2019, the Taliban have visited Moscow several times. In October 2021, after the US left Afghanistan and the Taliban seized power in the country, Putin in 2021 said that Russia was approaching a decision to remove the Taliban from the list of terrorist organizations, but that the UN Security Council should do this first. 3. In May 2024, the investigative committee charged journalist Nadezhda Kavorkova with justifying terrorism for 2 posts on a Telegram channel. One of the publications was dedicated to the activities of the Taliban. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated, "The Taliban are a real power. We have never removed our embassy from there, just like the People's Republic of China." The Afghan ambassador presented his credentials to Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing along with other ambassadors. Kazakhstan recently decided to remove them from the list of terrorist organizations. We are also going to do so. The UN Security Council has not declared the Taliban as a terrorist organization. There are 12 to 15 specific characters on the list, but the main thing is that they are a real power. Afghanistan is not indifferent to us, our allies, especially in Central Asia. Lavrov also added that the initiative to remove the Taliban from the prohibited organization list reflects objective reality. Kabulov added that Taliban representatives will attend the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum in early June 2024. The same day Putin also met with Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev in Tashkent and signed a statement on bilateral commitments, which included intentions to promote peace and stability in Afghanistan. The two presidents considered the promotion of peace and stability in Afghanistan a priority task and a factor influencing the security of Central Asia and neighboring regions, and intend to continue coordinating their efforts within the framework of proven platforms such as the Moscow format of consultations on Afghanistan, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and other mechanisms aimed at achieving concrete results in the Afghan settlement. The Kremlin has maintained contacts with the Taliban since the Taliban deposed the Afghan government in 2021, although more outright Russian recognition of the Taliban as the legitimate government of Afghanistan will likely portend increased Russian-Taliban cooperation. Russia likely hopes to leverage its relationship with the Taliban to degrade the operations of Afghan-based Islamic State Khorasan Province, ISKP, which organized and conducted the March 22 Crocus City Hall terrorist attack in Moscow, among other things. The Taliban continued efforts to repress anti-Taliban groups throughout Afghanistan, including ISKP, and Russia might hope to help the Taliban intensify its anti-ISKP activities. As we noted, Kazakhstan delisted the Taliban as a terrorist organization in December 2023, and Uzbekistan has expanded agreements with the Taliban in recent years, like with the tripartite railway project. Uzbekistan seeks relations with the Taliban for the following reasons. 1. Uzbekistan has sought to engage the Taliban leadership in Afghanistan to ensure its cooperation against Islamist extremist opposition groups. 2. Uzbekistan's leaders are not demanding that the Taliban include Afghan Uzbek factions in its governing structure. 3. An extremist opposition group, the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, IMU, is an ally of Islamic State Khorasan Province, ISK, which has sought to undermine Taliban rule in Afghanistan. 4. Tashkent views Afghanistan as a potential key trade route to the Indian Ocean. On May 28, 2024, Putin stated that it is necessary for Russia to build relations with the Taliban because the Taliban controls Afghanistan. Putin claimed that Russia is considering the opinion of each country in the region surrounding Afghanistan and will work with them when Russia considers whether to recognize the Taliban. The same day, Dmitry Medvedev stated that Russia is close to establishing fully-fledged relations with the Taliban because, according to him, 1. Russia is close to establishing full-fledged relations with the Taliban, who are back in power in Afghanistan. 2. If previously the Taliban were considered terrorists, now the American authorities are the terrorists' accomplices. 3. Russia must complete the work of its grandfathers and rid the world of fascism forever. 4. The American establishment has declared a hybrid war on the Russian Federation and is feeding and financing the Bandera government. 5. Medvedev accused Biden of trying to deliberately correct history. 6. Supporting the most odious regimes will not end well for the United States. This was clearly a propaganda message, but some points could be understood as indications of the evolution of Russian-Taliban relations. On October 10, 2024, Grigory Karasin, head of the Federation Council Committee on International Affairs, said that dialogue with the Taliban, who are in power in Afghanistan, appears important for maintaining peace in Central Asia. He added, "The difficult situation that has developed in Afghanistan is the result of the 20-year presence of the Americans and attempts to impose alien standards of political structure on the Afghan people. It seems important to continue the dialogue with the Taliban movement in power in order to maintain peace and stability in Central Asia," Karasin said during a roundtable called Regional Security in Central Asia in the context of the global geopolitical situation, held as part of the 8th Interparliamentary Forum, Tajikistan-Russia, Potential for Interregional Cooperation. On November 25, 2024, Afghan and Russian news outlets reported that Sergei Shoigu stated that the Kremlin will soon remove the Taliban from its list of terrorist organizations during a meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan and the Taliban delegation. As we just noted, the Kremlin has maintained direct contact with the Taliban since they took power in Afghanistan in 2021, although more explicit Russian recognition of the Taliban as the legitimate Afghan government will likely enhance Russia-Taliban cooperation. Russia has recently intensified outreach to the Taliban, in large part to leverage the Taliban's control of the Afghan government, useful from Russia's point of view, to degrade the Taliban's regional adversary, the Islamic State Khorasan Province. Yesterday, on November 26, 2024, Russian State Duma deputies submitted a bill to the Duma on November 26 proposing to amend the law on countering terrorism to allow the Russian government to remove banned terrorist organizations after the organization ceases its activities aimed at promoting, justifying, and supporting terrorism or committing terrorist acts. However, Russian law does not currently provide such a removal mechanism, and the amendments would allow Russia to remove the Taliban from the list, as government officials have repeatedly stated in the past months. A Russian source claimed that Sergei Shoigu's statement about the imminent exclusion of the Taliban from the list of terrorist organizations banned in the Russian Federation turned out to be hasty. Sources close to the Russian Foreign Ministry say that, at the moment, the deadline for making such a decision is suspended, so it is unlikely that the Taliban will be excluded from the blacklist before the end of this year. The insiders explained that work is underway, but there is definitely no rush. After all, the decision must be fully justified, clearly verified and legally impeccable. Therefore, the necessary consultations are still ongoing. Most likely, the Taliban will still be excluded, but the decision is unlikely to be made and legally formalized before the new year. So, Sergei Kujugitevich was a little hasty. If you appreciated the video, press the subscribe and like buttons and leave a comment. We will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching and bye for now.